This is the Annulet reading. I'm so excited to be here and to be at the New Orleans Poetry Festival for the first time and to bring a whole car full of poets from Iowa down to share their work with you. And so this reading features readers and contributors and editors from across Annulet's 4 issues, and in anticipation of the 5th issue, which will be coming out soon in the spring. So, and I'm just going to read the bios of each of the contributors before they read. Yeah. Okay. And so we'll just get started. So first up is Kelly Krumrie, who is the author of Matchbox from Calamari Archive. I just copied your bios from the website. So creative and critical writing is forthcoming from or appears in journals such as Harp Altar, Diagram, Annulet, Full Stop, and Blackboard Review. She also writes a column on math and science in art and literature for Tarpaulin Sky Magazine called Figuring. She holds a PhD in English and Literary Arts from the University of Denver and lives in Denver. Thanks.
I didn't anticipate going first. Thank you for the surprise. Good afternoon, friends. Well, you did not say that this the Annulet reading has a colon rural inquiry, and I had like mentally prepared to explain that like I don't really engage with the rural, so I don't. But it's false because this is my preamble. The 2 pieces that I have in Annulet are 2 critical pieces. One is on Elizabeth Bishop, a manuscript poem of hers called Vague Poem, Vaguely Love Poem, which I highly recommend if you're not familiar with it. But it engages with like barite crystals coming up out of the sand in rural Oklahoma, and it's about like sex and crystallization and so on. And then my second piece in Annulet is on the Argentinian fiction writer Juan Jose Serre. And his work also engages with like desert landscapes and the Argentinian pampas and sex and hot heat. And so Alicia asked me to read part of a manuscript I have called No Measure, which features kind of a desert landscape like those 2 other pieces, so it all weirdly like syncs up, I suppose. So it imaginatively inhabits a space kind of like Nevada, I would say like a basin range kind of landscape out there, and there are, it's 92 prose poems. And there are 2 researchers who are doing this like grass remediation project, which I can talk about at length, but I will not now. So there's grass and glass and a quarry and sand and sex, and also this like control room observation booth where one of the researchers is observing the other one throughout the text. And also there's a lot to do with like documentation and accounting and observation and record keeping in this kind of scientific manner. So I will read 8 of these. They're quite short prose poems, and I'll just pause between each one, I suppose. And that's it. Does that sound like a plan? Okay. I always feel like questions. That's like the teacher. He's like, okay, yes, okay. We shall proceed. So No Measure. I climbed the stairs to the control room. You let me in. Bright white desert. At the window, I picture you here. You stand at a dial, can handle an instrument. You ask, what would you like to measure? Desert, white hot, your lattice, what pattern, my direction, glass of water, I can't answer. The grass yellows, a clear and indifferent sound of weather. It rains. We run up the stairs. I start to tell you something. The desert grows dark. You go to the window, press your hands against the glass. I try to speak. I have no sound. When the hail settles, I'll go down and clear it out. Now you record the event, set your notes on the table. I try to walk over. Look, I leave no trace. When I move, you don't see. It's the grass in your eyes, the weather. There is no sound. I take your hand. From here, I can see so far. It rains. I have to tell you something. Look, you pull me to you. The desert is dark. No sound, I know. you press your hands to, there is no sound. When I move, you see, close your eyes, the desert is dark, hail makes sound. I don't try to speak. Out the window, it rains. You press my back to the window. With your eyes, record this event. No, no sound, the rain. I start to, in your direction, no, it's clear out. I had a bunch of coffee. Quantification, a problem, I walk here. This implement contains information about things that reflect light, vibrate, or are volatile. By implement, I mean my body. It scales the processes of events. I know the difference between the possible and the actual, the particle wave collapse. Perception is confined to the present. I can't know what glass is. Its formation is liquid, not crystalline. The molecule's position's variable. To know the window is to be wrong. I see the desert through it. You look at me through it. I want to move through. I want what's behind it. I want what's behind it, not only what arrangements make it. The sight of the window, the collapse when I look, is my error. What is the grass to the air? The desert is clear, sun bright, reflection of light off the light, sand, and rock. Clear, transparent, and radiant at once. The brightness is exact or collapses what's seen now. Not disaggregated, not void. Up, a glassy surface. Out, imperceptible array. It needs collision? No, the wind. Or the wind, is it? I see through it. Only in distance is there air here. Only in what the grass gives off or doesn't let go of. Accuracy is an ideal limit. You see everything from the control room. The desert's vastness, each measure I make, the clearness of the air, my walk through it, my nearness, the dunes array, drought and water. I reach for your arm, but you pull it back. Behind glass, you're reaching, I see it. Pull me. Let me look out from here one instant. An instrument is scored for my measure. That is, it tells me what to look for. Its notches name a distance, its units an account. I have an array of these, wooden and metal rulers, a wound tape, a clicking wheel, a hanging scale, and string, and pencils. I hold a tool up to something still. To measure is to align, to measure against. The string is slack against the grass. The string does nothing. I do. I spread the legs of the compass, draw a circle in the sand. One thing makes its mark in another. It's bright here and windy. An expanse, a salt flat, a great basin, low shifting dunes, rocky washes, mountains at all horizons, a near sun, all surfaces radiant, glittering scales of mica and angled quartz, light in my eyes. We index, mediate this place. What holds my attention? I measure a length, I measure distance. Thank you.
That's pretty country, Kelly, sorry. Our next inquirer in the rural inquiry is Sara Gilmore, who is a recent graduate of the Iowa Writers Workshop and holds an MFA in Comparative Literature Literary Translation. She teaches poetry at the University of Iowa as one of the 2022-2023 visiting writers and serves as a senior literary editor for the Iowa Prison Writing Project. She presently resides in Iowa City with her amazing young son, Sam, but lived for 17 years outside the United States. In that sense, she calls a number of places and identities home. Her work has also, alongside Annulet, her work has also appeared in Second Factory, inevitably Presse's Second Factory. Sarah.
Wow, I'm so nervous, so I hope that doesn't get in the way of the poems, but hey, thank you, and thanks for being here. I guess, okay, so I wrote a series of poems that, it's a cycle around hobo symbols. And, you know, boy, after the Great Depression was sort of the big moment of hobo life. And I didn't know this, a lot of hobos were teenagers. And then I guess I sort of thought about, one thing I've been thinking about, like the rural, being sort of this place that you can kind of get a little bit lost in or anonymous in. And a lot of people traveling without any mark of themselves being left. So then, you know, when people did go to the places that they went, like leaving a mark, and the mark being not a description of themselves, but a description of that place to tell like the other invisible people that they knew were there, but that they didn't actually interact with about that place, right? And that kind of being some kind of weird reverse of what, you know, I think happens a lot in like social media or something, where it's a lot of me marking myself on a place. So anyway, I'm gonna just read some poems from that cycle. So all the titles of these poems are like the names of the symbols. So, okay. Owner is out. Then they came, those green lives, to the very edge, afraid to enter trouble, that instance of their uncontainable accord of sleep. The tiny but repeating skies, by virtue of, while we are able, by virtue of that. A few words came carrying, and maybe no voice, but in them still the cart and constant. First a great habit, evening and even, the inhalation inside, somewhere else, is somewhere else. It gives out to transmission in second, third pass. Dense they made in density keeping, dream they produced in density scripting. Along the tires when the sun goes down, along in meadow circles, but a slot means circular arrival, it means the same, dodge. Then there were no coins, physical things out like wishes, before they were gone, hidden over loud, largest found. Keep quiet. Something is important and fleeting, estuary, cradle, there hungrily, a delta, a cable, not palpable, will you know when you've entered? What's the amount when? Ocean percentage, ocean borrowed colors, amount borrowed for a time. You know, the surprise of waking is a formal field I'd remember to pay back. Warping and climbable, fast names it has, the layers of yards casually out. Live by them. I know you because you live by them. Safe camp. By wave, the display comes off into circulation where only where sleeping shows how into sleep builds. Distance wavers as it does now is a long way. Now as it does take away sulfur mines, He estimated his return. The man I saw by the waves of summation, by the liquid falls, like unassuming, like cloud in the west. Sit by me. If half the clouds were mine and half were yours, in sleep to count them until confines solidify sulfur. Everything comes from somewhere else, he says, quick in everything, quick in liquid. Eavesdrop over land of nettles, he brings a pack of location. He brings the sound of his voice home to me. Obvious moths drop down. Dana, I think you're dreaming of a project. How the sound circulating. Make me anonymous, and just as the sun starts to sink down, bleed the contemporary and proof of alcohol for it. It stops currency. It is bedding down for the night. It is down. The sky's the limit. When I say it might live, related, trap, sound, run up, it doesn't mind not being wrapped or endless. Between red and green, between us, the adjacency that can make material and a lack of tension, it's already been. It's conducted differently from how the sun sets. I understood the confrontation, but why talk about it if the articulation only establishes the undamaged shapes of conviction, false start of a clarity we'd someday seen turned back on us. Above and below, the migration I've called is ordinary. Just as the H is only half silent, vertical and integrated, awash in hairy processes, how impossible things happen all the time in the hesitancy where some keys wear faster than others intimately, communicating themselves, codes this day, we catch it. Well, I don't know. Okay, Judge, I never lost the dream. Nobody special climbed hand over hand, a rope fastened outside the outline of ceiling through several rooms. One room starts where another room begins. A chest outside, a warning, and ornaments as something to fly. Then rules. The water said nobody special and said float, float. Couldn't start at the beginning of the rope or the end, but somewhere lost from the rope. It was a question of keep trying and being rooted on by videos on the internet and my dream digital friend, showing nobody special how to wash the lot of plastic bottles and reuse them, red clouds of red sky. The lightning didn't have to be original, how you are and how you're going to be this Madeline and still wanting to turn red and live. Doubtful. Rummaging close to enumerations we loved. No record, no dime motel, square up, signal that stores in me. It could be a great distance. In the fine details of others so close and compelled, there is no list. Service of tension, shining deletion of a causeway, pulling talk in density, no home in density, I wished, in dirt. Inversions pinned nowhere, layers I loved through life's the dipping futility of taking density across the weight of the window. Gradations that fail to divide closely enough, they're over and over the masonry. My friends who built, who watched with me, it came from us, skimming. It's earlier on. All right, just one last poem and I'll get out of here. So, You Will Be Beaten. This is my favorite title. I was like, I saw this one at the beginning of the cycle of poems. I was like, this one's going to write itself, you know. Deliver and tell apart. You think how a division of low effect might finally go outside. Believers of building, we're near it or we're in it, by the backyard's refrigerator, where fine detailed streams left hum on, hum off, streams right, and once, as blood level, we sunk some attendance in liquid to float ourselves higher up. A great inhalation, a bed for bedding down, tiny silver fish, call back, pitch side by side, head to feet, and finally come home low to medium resolve, mediumship, dangling every day from now. You ever seen this trick? It's all that I can see.
Thank you, Sarah. Ooh, this thing really does drift down. Yeah. Okay, up next is C.T. Salazar, who is a Latinx poet and librarian from Mississippi. His debut collection, Headless, Hitchhiking, from Acre Books, was named a 2023 finalist for the Theodore Roethke Memorial Award. His poems have most recently appeared in Poetry Northwest, Gulf Coast, West Branch, Cincinnati Review, Denver Quarterly, and elsewhere. C.T.
Everyone. This is a poem about being white passing. When the crows came, I didn't hate them. They needed to roost, and I needed a purple deep enough to convince the neighborhood boys of my skin smokiness. I don't mind seeing strands of my hair in their nests, pages of scripture I've torn out, strips of silver chocolate wrappers, stray threads from old sweaters. They take it all, curious gods. The young ones chirp. Every morning my body's outlined in feathers, the whole bed dappled dark as a beginning. I don't know what to say, so I say thank you. The crows don't know what to say, so they don't speak. They just keep finding parts of me to make useful. I thank them for that too. It's so funny to write a book and I have no idea where stuff sits in it. Great. Okay. So this is called Self-Portrait as Headless John the Baptist Hitchhiking. God makes more sense this way. When blood flows from the neck, the body looks like an uncorked bottle, but maybe this leaves more room for salvation. The less of me, the less of sin. You said I was temptation, the way my eyes look pure as pine. In a window of light, but still call me a saint after I changed your flat tire. You're right, holiness is in the hands, even if it's always the head that gets haloed. I said I wanted to worship something, even if it's just the black beetles in your yard, crawling around hurriedly like pieces of a star trying to reassemble itself. In your apartment, we danced like we knew each other. You rubbed your hands against my neck and shoulder as if you were shaping me out of a blackberry vine. I said the dogmouth dark carried me here and laid me in your bed. I said lamb and felt myself become gospel in your hands. Oh, sorry. Is this a good, can you guys hear me? Okay. This poem is called Evergreen Grown, Evergreen Go. Let the social lose itself in the applause-hungry meadow, the humming of a post lit with ladybugs in reference to how the space between the in and the outside came to be called rapture, its light as a blade of grass. immaculate as a dewy dress of grass, given the pollen the pasture promises, hem me into something about forgiveness. The mud marsh lost in the bottom of itself, where a man can find a year, maybe more of daydreaming. Meaning like the moon could reveal itself at any moment, little light on the hunt for a past more than the politics of memory. And this one is called A Liar is Anyone with a Better Imagination Than the State. What luck, the daffodils are back already, stripes of hickory where the horse bells, yes, softly. History said I needed something to do with my hands. I made a butterfly with my hands. My ear was a flower they whispered into, not that, they said. We took the monuments down, but the news said even taller ones have been raised in their place. And the fireflies mingled the air outside the penitentiary long after we littered their fence with roses. I'm finding all my loved ones and knocking on their windows. I'm finding all my green wet against the sight. This one's called In the Dark, I Cannot See Your Boat, but I Can Hear the Oar. The field was argumentative and full of an otherwise grace, kind of critique toward how the wind feels more sure of itself in the dark, and dark we become the quiet corner of our nation, our telephone wires that end at the silent acre holding our fugitives. A boy I loved, his tattooed hands, it's true. The streak of daisies never knew better. It wasn't until we built the prison they heard a word like doom. The field fell apart under that weight and wool-white river of clouds. It won't be wisteria, though it will be present when we wash the hair of our sons in spring. Thank you.
Ryan Tucker is a multimedia artist and poet from Paso Robles, California. He currently lives in Iowa City and teaches at Augustana College in Rock Island, Illinois. Ryan.
Hi.
That's how you do that.
What?
That's how you do that.
Yeah, this clockwise.
Okay.
I have a problem where sometimes I'll close a jar too tight, and then I can't get it back open, so if it wants to let me know. So I am from Paso Robles, which you, like many people, when I tell them I'm from Paso Robles, they're like, oh man, the wine is great. Which to me ends up being oh yeah, I love what they made. It makes me not go back there anymore. But there is something about rurality that also combines this question. I was thinking about the etymology, and it's the open space, the weird relationship between the pastoral and open space, between a place that is empty, absent of urbanity, and a place that could be a space for fantasy. There are a lot of these houses up on hills that people have built that look like the weird gladiator space in the movie Gladiator, right? This Tuscan fantasy that many people try to inhabit. And that also includes when I was a kid, the Kmart closed, right? And it's okay, well, no place to buy regular stuff. This one's called The Last Kmart in Spokane. When I was there last, I couldn't find any soap. And the garden center was dirty concrete with a few wilted things denying their names, mostly clay pots, with the sun's face repeating, and a memory of looking at a shelf of King's most recent horror novel with my mom, who was a very big fan of his but hadn't read anything since The Stand. And we looked at the cover, clearly seeing two different things at once. In the sweet forest floor scent of the bicycle tires, we walked the linoleum from t-shirts to toys. And to be honest, I don't remember anything we ever bought there beyond what I begged for most convincingly, the tender purple oval case of the Tamagotchi. also kind of close to the ocean, so a lot of the stuff deals there. An out tide. How the crowd, a whole bouquet, listening to us, having our simple, brutal arguments over small hurts and slights, somehow becoming this falling out from under us, the lack of buoyancy, a wave, waving away, weaving sand, an absence in us. Talking at the table, the very still life, the daisies all droop now. And some of the flowers are indistinct, the anemones are perfect in their heads. Dreaming of the ocean, the real living animals that share their name because of their likenesses. Sitting at this table dreaming of the Pacific, but more about how that ocean isn't peaceful. Not where we're from when the sea recedes, only rocks remain, somehow still sharp underfoot despite that weathering. When the water whispers to them, and we'd go out to the rocks, and there all those sea flowers closed up on themselves, as if they knew the children would be coming, with their index fingers out, first for pointing, and then pressing quickly in to watch them weep. I spent probably like 3 or 4 months alone in like an apartment during the pandemic, and like the house next to me like actually burned down while I was there, and the person downstairs was not there, so I wrote some poems around it, thinking about home. Memoria Monstrum. No, it's only sounding like the eucalyptus trees outside, branching out in leaves like melting commas, every shuddering end a pause held above a small and silent limestone wall they built at some point. I was there too, I'm sure, because I've seen pictures when it wasn't the creek, would fill and rush and mostly dry. That's what hush is, the absence is the gentle turning of the slushy machine in red and blue, but both are cherry flavors. There's something secret between them we can't see there, but we sit on a wall. We're not ape men, there are no kings, except briefly in the shapes of dripping condensation as they soak into that hot porousness. And it'd be like 2. My great text, phony euphonia. Sometimes you make a thing and you're like, it's good for me. And then there's future me and that guy. To hold it as pain, refrain from plainly speaking. Here, think of it this way. There's an owl treed across the street from me. And even daily this bird makes its small noise that isn't a noise I understand. It isn't even planned by the bird, it's just the sound it makes. I make inside this house some sounds too. I make the sound of the pan on the stove. I don't make the stove, and I don't make the pan. I don't make the food, I mix things together sometimes. There's the sound of a bird like a hinge unoiled. The bird mixed with the owl, how I know it's an owl. But I don't know the squeaking bird, its preponderance, a hesitation to judge. But one can't unknow it's plain again, I said, to gain anything, even knowledge, is to know that what comes must again always be ready to go. Okay. You guys ever see postcards that are from a place, but it's like always the exact same text, like greetings from? You know what I mean? And then the name of whatever fucking town. And it's like, it could be a picture, it could be any picture. Usually, like, where I'm from, it'll just be like, beautiful vineyards, right? I'm like, this, I guess. It's like, greetings from Paso Robles. I don't know who gets them. Greetings from wine country. Looking through the glass of wine on the table, and the legs inside running down in bars, sometimes cleaving to and from conversation. How does one say, it isn't so hard imagining water straight to blood. I guess that's as tired as hearing another about empty wells, a rock over a hole, and nothing behind it. My mom listing houses up and down the street as they failed. Listening to the notes you're finding in the bowl, each with a longer lull between them, waiting for confirmation from me. I'm a bell of doubt. Waiting for what? Old leather? Blackberry? Barnyard? I've broken bales into mangers. Sometimes you find a bundle of blind mice, pink as the corner of your eye. In that moment, you catch a glimpse of was and won't. A bunch with no vine. The present only touches, which is now. Now.
Okay. Thanks, everyone, so far. Justin Cox, surprise, it's your turn. Justin Cox's writing has appeared in Annulet, The Canary, Chicago Review, Denver Quarterly, Jubilat, and Mercury Firs. The others here. Tiger and elsewhere. Justin teaches at the University of Iowa and has been a fellow at the International Institute of Modern Letters in Wellington, New Zealand, and has some charts for us.
I do, I have some props. All right. I brought this magnet, like what you, if you were working on your car and you dropped a bolt, like pick it up. I got it to do this one circus trick, which won't work with that chart. But it will work with this one. Use over time for humane. Use over time for potable. I think I'm going to time myself here. All right. Low before and low desolation, low rose bushes multiflower. Flood and floodplain, floor and acres, the lows not never attain, no. Low clumps and below, mid-July along noon or so, the yellow-green miles allow. Wind and backwater spray, the lowest part of the state, green-gray cottonwoods turning over in foaming sweeps. I learned to love from cattle country, adverts full of tenderness, for trucks that haul recovered calves from slickered shoulders, gloved hands. Cattle shine in the sun at the fence, cattle shine in the pond with the fish, the slick green surface of the pond shines herring. I didn't put your place, CAFO, concentrated animal feeding operation, on counter below. By now, I guess the algo knows. I don't know what I wanted to save, my embarrassment. To ride around the big curve, loose gravel, a trick of the eyes, the road goes on for miles, ditches of sunlit crosses at night. Every year someone hits a world record deer. I wash my tires, it's protocol. Grow tomatoes and fish guts. Cats in the rafters go after mice. I tattoo puppies with green inky spikes. In case they get lost, which they never do, they are stolen or shot, or they got on someone's dead pile and lurched like a truck back then. Stand on top of one bison skull. Float on a pallet in a lake until your face is half ate by an emergent preternatural tar. Creepshow. Drive there in your car, down slant-lit golden summer cottonwood dirt gravel roads. I have a Civic, whatever. It's like one hamburger on Tuesday instead of two. When I get to the lake, it's drained down a drain, pile of flexy fish bones glisten. I caught a 30-pound flathead there on 6-pound test. Good luck. I don't like touching the fish, cleaning the fish, holding ponds diesel dug, tested, the lake invested in pH. 2 frogs then, on 2 sides of a leaf, a lily. I want to make the most of this. Bubbles bubble up from algae around. Algae like turkey and abstraction and anonymity. What about 50? A whole hillside strutting and rebutting. One thing that has happened a little bit as I've been kind of accumulating some poems toward a project is that I find myself starting to kind of engage in some different registers, like charts, or things that feel specifically like exercises I might give a student or something, like come up with a thesis that includes I will show or something like that, which is not an exercise I have given, but I know I have some friends that have, and I read some of their examples and I was like, oh shit, yeah, I want to make those. So here's one of those. This deer is shown in the context of the history of all deer. Here, this great big buck, a buck with antlers measuring over 200 inches, which was the goal of its enclosure and selective breeding program. An advance, a success, world class. I will show how this program distracts from and calls attention to the systematic destruction of waterways, landscapes, and livelihoods through an aggressive monoculture of seed. Dirt helmet, a historical helmet, and artifact metal met with smooth dirt. I mean ritual knowing, a tone from tumbleweeds stacked up over the helmets of cars. Through the ball to the dog, through the ball to the dog, through the fence a dog, snarled and bit where otherwise it might have nuzzled its muzzle in. My armpit the dog, would-be show dog showed its teeth, its missing tooth, spit from the herding group. The truck stalls past round bales. It lets out a trailer of feeder pigs loaded into the operation. Hot shot, cattle prod, more crop and spur. Loaded in there, the truck backs past walnut, serrated walnut and hedge. Bright green hedge balls, the truck backs, diamond cut, dusted moth. Nutted pig, teeth clipped, turned back into, loose into the pen, back into, loose into the stall. The Tdap knot takes weeks to disperse, and worse, no iodine in the cut. No iodine on the cut, just muck, just the mountain cur's flank, cured after being laid open at the top of a woven wire fence. Now for some charts. Use over time for nitrates. Use over time for fertilizer. Use over time for glyphosate. Use over time for herbicide. Use over time for toxic. Use over time for positivity. Use over time for humane. Use over time for potent. Two more. Sure. Please do. Use over time for livestock. Use over time for algae. It's upside down.
Oh no, we're good.
Use over time, I really can.
Wow.
Yeah. Use over time for arsenic. Use over time for snake. Just like one or two more here. They'll be short, as you have probably guessed. Other work. I run the chute, lever necks and thick piping, administer shots. What I care about is getting back to town. I get stickered, a bed full of shred, and peel out as much as possible. A barista of burnouts, leaf shapes on the square. What the fuck they gonna do? I pour a little toad from my chute. Rusted, green-gray humidity, cloud heat, so thick it's infinity. It's pioneer, fluidity. Thank you.
That was fun.
Thanks. Yeah. Just had to grab these.
It's perfect and great. All right, our final rural inquirer reader today is Gabrielle Octavia Rucker. Gabrielle Octavia Rucker is a writer, editor, and teaching artist from the Great Lakes, currently living in the Gulf Coast. She is a 2020 Poetry Project Fellow, a 2016 Kimbilio Fiction Fellow, and the founder of the Seminary of Ecstatic Poetics, a non-traditional learning space for the poetically minded. Her fantastic debut poetry collection, Dereliction, is currently available through Songcave. Gabrielle.
Okay, that's good. Thanks. I kind of weaseled my way into this reading because I didn't know this festival was happening until 2 weeks before. And then I saw Annulet was doing something, so I emailed Alicia. So thanks for making time and space for me. I really love your journal. I'm honored to be in it. So I'm gonna read probably only one off my phone and a few in there, and then that will be it. This is called Lag Time or Zooted. 3 hits in and you remember you're dead, and that dead people live just as you do. Hunting for water, toiling about the oven, halted before architectures tuned in abstract, misshapen doors that disallow breeze, discouraging spirits from passing through, so they hover, casting a thin black mold across the ceiling. Dreamless sleep stagnates intuition, untroubled signs of life past its end. A toxic barrier mounts behind the right eye, beating the sinus dry. The ghost inhabiting your mind pushes her face against the retina's window, turning your attention down toward the fine text of the floorboard's wood grain, the oldest earth in the house, where she commands you to sit and remember every frightful battle you endured, the start of time, the end of time, the salted womb in which your consciousness cured. You wake dehydrated to the sound of disembodied fireworks, shimmy on a slip to go eat cold rice over the sink. A void descends, the bland taste of tap water filtered, the bloodless curdle of goat's milk warmed. Somewhere in the walls a cockroach hides, stroking clean her antenna, moving by the command of a voice you cannot hear, a sense, a smell, a straight line knowledge guarded under her thin lining of atomic shell. The mind lags, catches onto a loop of time, a plot of oozing swampland, the inevitable rubble of your house. You ponder your hand and a tree sprouts forth, reveals to you their illegible face, speaks their illegible name. To be alive is to be a deviation of wisdom. This is called Of the Lucky You Are Chosen. Out of the window of a speeding Oldsmobile, a young girl's reflection dances on a prism of flyby crops. What she doesn't know, suffering happily, drinking her red pop, pondering the merging of all possible reality, the lifespan of rocks. Geologically speaking, she knows all life is lava-born, all chaos and structure naturally formed through fire and pressure, simple ingredients of fate and bacteria cycled through eons of gradually polluted atmosphere. Embryonically, her conscience remains seafaring, unforgivably young. She revisions herself, a 10-million-year-old reptile creeping the shoreline, a bog-buried sacrifice excavated, her skull full of mud and bile, 3 petrified baby teeth fused to the jaw. It was a quick death, she remembers, a long life wandering. She knows what she knows, a child of the universe, suffering happily, watching her reflection, cautiously considering the scene before her, a long road stretched thin towards a violent horizon. Practice for my birthday. I grew and all around me were trees, a small cut of wood I couldn't enter though I tried. As a child, during a thunderstorm, while I was getting my hair braided, I watched the oak out front struck down by a bolt of lightning, the jolt of bark cracking split through the house, the table shook, and the braids snatched tighter against me. It was a fantastic sight, the fire that sat in the hall left over, glowing steady for one whole night. I got older, I remembered a lot, still remember a lot. Everything began to make more sense, less too as the glass dome fell, reflecting off the distant moving of the blurry other side. Only now do I realize what I'm chasing, the thrill of the last time something fell out of the sky. Up until that point, I was having fun in my own way. I was practicing my handwriting. I was making myself useful to myself as one must, and then what? I decided which ones I was going to read, but now I'm changing my mind. I'll do 3 more. Feeling is the motor of action. If I could laugh with people, then I would be with people laughing. Outside, the scabby pit bull whines, and I find myself unable to sympathize. Another bad dream descends upon me, the one where a naked woman hovers in the doorway breathing, the one where I spoon-feed a man his own bone marrow, aromatically roasted over a bed of eucalyptus leaves. In the morning, I find a loofah seed sprouting in the bathtub drain and pluck it clean, chuck it in the trash where I dump the bloody napkins, little balls of discarded hair. The jets approach, roaring in formation, the wind chime halts. I go inside to eat undressed lettuce, apply some chapstick, smoke. The stench of dog shit rises. One missed call. The marigolds sing over the Delilahs. 2 cats near each other across the gate. Love brings me back to the phone. It always brings me back to the phone. I haven't read this one out loud, so I don't know how this goes. In my mind, and hopefully you will oblige me, you can close your eyes because it's a short film. You don't need to look at me. So this is called Dysnomia or Tantalum Obsolete, a short film. We seal the promise that will not keep. Blighted kiss shielded behind red rusted Porsche. 2 childhood wits reunited, 2 lovers sheltered in topaz, a fading, soft-lit autumn surrounding, cut to. Alone suddenly, spat back into the clover grass, overhead the moon of Eris glaring, overheard, endless buzzing of a frayed telephone wire, further off, a humming freeway shifting volume with the wind, cut to. Chimney smoke at first snow, a single baby violet emerges out of the frost, a small bloom, nearly missed by the heel of a leather boot, size 9, black, descending down the hillside of a concrete staircase inserted some 50 years prior, a great place to smoke or take a phone call, unbothered, out beyond the static, long memory holds. Cut to. Memory deluge over dual voice, the footsteps, the teardrops, the dance floor, a whirlwind romance unaligned. Pause on the family photos, overlay image with time, small shifts seen in the magnolia, the body of a decaying dog in the yard. Cut to a shadow on the wall of a kitchen, the toys of a toddler strewn about the house, big hands spinning bouding balls, their soft chime growing louder and louder. Cut to 3 sisters in a car driving down a freeway. The one in the back seat tries to sync the music. Bluetooth pairing fails. 2 lovers in a station wagon driving down a back road. The one in the passenger seat is trying to sync the music. Bluetooth pairing fails. A weakening miasma hovers. Cut to over each city, a microwave cooking the flesh, green and gold licked radiation raining down, another false aurora of an industrial dye. Factories, endless factories, a box elder bug creeping through a window, heard in the distance, a train passing. Cut to even if the phones are listening, we must remain incoherent. Gutter water rising, plastic bead floating in the door frame of a flooded bedroom decorated with the painted handprints of a child. Cut to many years later, ruins, the house overcome by green, cat's claw yellow, the furniture molded, shifted, no one inside, no signal. And this is the last one. If you are interested, I brought like a very small number of copies of my book. You can talk to me about it. This is called Practice for Your Birthday. Woe is me, all these eyeballs aimed at this quick round heart, and all these gowns I was not given, and never enough counter space to cook. Copper pots all over the place. And you so cool bragging about how easy it is to make money, explaining why you had to quit drinking coffee. Never mind, I'm broke and never buy espresso unless I think I might be on the verge of knocking out. And yes, there were some years I took to cigarette smoke, but never enough for me to think I should stop. Not everything is a habit, for better or worse. Some of us have a strong hold in our personalities. And that's the difference between what you think and what I think. We don't need to be any more than we already are. All those days we lost bickering back and forth within ourselves, moody in the kitchen scrutinizing what I might have meant when I refused the cake. In reality, it's not such a complicated thing. Sometimes I'm simply not that hungry, and we had been driving for hours across highways, listening to songs only you knew, and at the time I was curious about it, cautiously tapping my fingers on the shell of your back, trying to decipher how I crawled out from under my girlhood to here, passenger seated in the parking lot of a biscuit diner, watching you self-project onto some hillbilly in a yellow pickup truck when I could have just went home, my gut said, as we came rolling down the hill, and only I marveled at the big black tree engulfing the street lamp. Thanks.
Everything's so amazing. Let's have another round of applause. Thank you for being here. And if you want to continue the proposed portion of the reading, which included some dialogue about what Annulet is and why we're doing it, feel free to find me or any of us later on in the evening. All right? Thank you again.